A lot of people glorifying this journey and people doing it, electively rather than for medicinal or, medical reasons. And for me, I mean, obviously it is personal. It rubs me the wrong way seeing people glorify it. And, they'll post about it and they'll kind of selectively choose what they want to share. And I understand that. Like, we live in a world where everything is 20-second, reels, and it's just doing what you can to get those views and whatnot. But it's also, you have a responsibility when you're sharing that, because people do take social media very seriously.
Hi fam, welcome to another episode of Bidun Sukkar, where we discuss and question cultural norms without sugarcoating or filtering. Today's episode was started as a spark because I posted a reel about two women discussing infertility and fertility preservation tools like egg freezing and IVF, and how it got emotional. My guest here had a lot to say. So we said, how about we turn this into an episode? Today's episode is about what is called now social fertility approaches, which are not so fancy words when you use egg freezing and IVF for a social reason, not for medical need. And my guest and I today have actually experiences where it was a medical need, and we want to talk about how society took this and ran with it, and de-glorifying it a little bit, because we had firsthand experiences. And what does it really mean, and what does it really take, and how it has been a little bit abused, just a little bit. So today, a little bit,
a tad.
So today I have Layla. I've known Layla for around 10 years.
Yep.
So Layla, tell us about yourself.
Ooh, that's such a loaded question.
We don't need to go into her childhood trauma. No. We can stick to who are you?
Well, I am... Oh, that is a loaded question. I mean, I'll start with how we met. We met in our old advertising job, fun times.
First job.
Yep, first job together.
That's also a loaded question.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been in that industry since. And I guess what brought us here today is basically, in a nutshell, I was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, and it was ovarian cancer, of course. Which is why we are here today.
Yeah. Talk about the ovaries.
Yeah, talk about the ovaries. And through that whole experience, it obviously led me to having to freeze embryos.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference?
So what I learned in the process was that you can either freeze eggs or embryos. So eggs are just the eggs that you have, what you're born with, and they go through a freezing cycle. Embryos are when you actually fertilize the egg. And so actually here in Dubai, you have to be legally married to do that. Yeah. Whereas elsewhere, it can be a sperm donor or, your legal partner. So my best chance at that time was embryo freezing, and we had just gotten married. So we underwent that process.
Why was it a need to do that at that point?
Basically, I had one of my ovaries removed already. And when you undergo chemotherapy, what they do is, for women, is they give you a shot to put your ovary to sleep, if you have any, because there is a high chance of damage from the chemo. Okay. And by putting it to sleep, again, there's no certain numbers. Yeah. There's no certainty with it. It's literally just everything's up in the air. Like, my whole experience has just been a big question mark because there's just not enough research. There's not enough numbers. And each case is literally case by case. Every person's unique. But for us, we had to do it immediately because I was in a time crunch. Yeah. So we underwent embryo freezing. Unfortunately for me, the timing of it, if you know anything about egg freezing or embryo freezing, there is a certain window in which you have to do it to basically get a large quantity of eggs. We only got 2. And that, I mean, it is what it is. And yeah, that's basically my journey with, you know, the whole fertility and egg freezing and embryo freezing. But there was a lot from then until now that has come to light. And it's, you know, it's what sparked our conversation, because there's a lot of people glorifying this journey and people doing it, you know, electively rather than for medicinal or, you know, medical reasons. And for me, I mean, obviously it is personal. It rubs me the wrong way seeing people glorify it. And, you know, they'll post about it and they'll kind of selectively choose what they want to share. And I understand that. Like, we live in a world where everything is 20-second, you know, reels, and it's just doing what you can to get those views and whatnot. But it's also, you have a responsibility when you're sharing that, because people do take social media very seriously.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I know it's very personal, and I know it took you, you know, a while to decide to even share that with us.
Yeah.
And sorry that you had to go through that journey. And for anyone who went through that journey, it's not an easy one to take such big, large decisions in such a short time while defeating death. And, you know, it's a lot of,
you know, it's just being a woman.
As you do. So also from my perspective, I've been talking about this on the podcast as well for at least 2 years. And mine was also medicinal, and I had to face the truth because I have PCOS, and I knew from when I was 19 that it impacted my fertility. And at one point, my doctor blankly, like, what is it? Like, straight up just told me, oh, your eggs are not mature enough. You're never going to have kids.
Wow.
At 19, you know. As you do at 19, that's experience you want.
I mean, on the one hand, it's good that you knew that at 19, but I mean, there's a way of delivering that information.
As she was writing her notes, you know, it was very, as you say, hey, do you want to have coffee? Do you like sugar with it? Oh, you're not going to have kids, you know? Okay, cool. But she said, it's okay, we'll medicate. And I medicated, blah, blah. And she said, yeah, now you're ready. But I was put on the pill since I was 19 until I decided to get off of it at 31. And obviously, the pill is used in PCOS as a Band-Aid, and they don't tell you anything about what's wrong with it. Now, at this age, I'm married, we start having that conversation. And also, I've always known that I'm not sure if I ever want to have kids. So, but I wanted to start having the discussions. And I learned new things, which no one bothered to tell me ahead of time, of course. Why should they? It's just the lack of quality of doctors in this country, in the region, I think, or even in the world, because as always, female medicine is never funded enough, never acknowledged enough. That's why we have so many solutions for Viagra, but we don't have any solutions about women. That's fine. That's not today's topic.
It's another episode.
Yeah. The idea is, I think it also rubs me the wrong way, because I always thought egg freezing is just like, yeah, it's right there. I just can do it. You know, I can figure it out. And people did start talking about it a few years ago, especially in our circles, because we were the same age. And I always thought it was just like my go-to. Then I found it's not my go-to.
It's not.
It's really not my go-to. You know, they don't tell you about the injections, which I know I don't want to put myself through hormones because I know my body. And they don't tell you that it's not guaranteed. And they don't tell you that with your age, the chances drop. So I read something. If you are 35 years old and you freeze your eggs, your chances are, drum roll, 50 to 60%. And you're putting around $9,000 to $20,000 per cycle for that chance. But again, no one tells you.
Nope.
So another thing I found out just now, actually, when I was reading about it, I didn't know that the UAE has the lowest fertility rates. One of the lowest, not the lowest, but lower than UK, US, a lot of the world, and mainly because of lifestyle, diet that no one tells you about, led by PCOS.
Yes, that makes sense, actually.
Makes sense, sense. So the worse your diet is, obviously the worse your opportunities are. And so recently I went to see my doctor to talk about things. And, you know, like, I only heard about AMH, which is a very important diagnostic for you. Why did I learn about it 2 years ago? It essentially captures the age of your ovaries. You have to do it before you do your egg freezing, because because you might be 20 but have ovaries of a 50-year-old or vice versa. But no one tells you that. And also that number is not accurate. So
it's not. I actually didn't even know about this until after the fact. And we had, so basically because I had ovarian cancer, I have to go in for testing every 6 months. And so they test my AMH and they test my LH. So these are two things that are very important in female reproductive health. And I had no idea. Like even after this whole thing, you know, and, you know, we've gone through chemo, we've gone through the egg freezing, we've gone through all of this, embryo freezing. And, you know, I go into my doctor and, you know, he's talking about AMH and I'm like, what is that? And he's basically explaining to me that it's, you know, the quality of and quantity of your eggs that you have left. And I'm like, okay. And I had an extremely low number. I think the margin is like 1 or 0.5 to 1.
Yeah.
I was at 0.05. So literally, and when you hear that number, it's absolutely scary, especially when you're at the start of your relationship and trying to figure out, like, do you want kids? Do you not want kids? And knowing that that option's taken away almost instantly. But the thing with that is, I went to another doctor.
Same.
And he was telling me, and he's my gynecological oncologist, so he specializes in this. And he was like, your AMH is a figure that you really should not put that much stock in because it fluctuates. And it matters when you take that test and when. And so what we had learned through this experience was through testing, my AMH started going back up.
Oh, they told me I can't bring it back up.
Exactly. That's what I was told by my gyno, is that it will never go back up.
Because it's like an age. It will always go down.
Exactly. Yeah. And so through that whole experience, you're just like, okay, well, I have two doctors telling me two contradicting things. And it just tells me that there's not really a definitive answer. Or, you know, no one really knows because no one's done the research for it. And again, it's one of those things where female health is so underfunded and under-researched. And it's frustrating because, you know, it's people's lives.
Yeah. And you're supposed to trust those doctors. They're supposed to be the source of truth, but they're not being that anymore. You have to know what you're going to ask. You have to be well prepared. You have to know your body, and you're going to get dismissed anyway. You have to be your own champion in a way.
100%.
No, what I did is I did the same test in 2 different places with 2 different doctors. I got similar results, at least. At least that. One doctor told me it's slow and your option is egg freezing and go to Spain. Essentially. Great.
So don't do it here.
It's cheaper. Okay. You know, and apparently Dubai is going to turn into a hub for fertility tourism. I was reading about it today. It's trying to pose itself like that. The other doctor told me, you're great. You have at least another year with that number. You know, you can just take some things like supplements to help with cell health and normal supplements, not like female health related. And she's like, yeah, you're fine. No worries. Just don't smoke. Thanks.
So what do you do with that information?
Exactly,
you know?
Right. And additionally, she said egg freezing she doesn't recommend. I trust her a little bit more because she's a little bit more established. She said egg freezing is not recommended because you need 15 or
20 plus
or 20 eggs to do it. And again, you're going to pay up to $20,000 for a cycle that you can't guarantee. And she said IVF. I said IVF. I'm not willing to do IVF no matter what. I don't think I want kids that badly. And that's something I've known. And I've had this conversation with Ahmed. It was like, if we have to go to IVF, I'd rather not. I wouldn't. And I think what we want to talk about is a lot of these women or a lot of the social media content is glamorizing that from a female empowerment. Oh, I have a choice. Even the other doctor told me, you know, just like ريحي راسك, you know, and just do it and then come to it. But no, going through injections, going through hormone therapy, going through the disappointment and the financial
100%
inability, let's say, or financial stress, which again, in this economy, we need to discuss it, right? Priorities. These women glamorizing it from a point of perspective, from a point of view of empowerment. You know, you can choose your career over whatever. I think our agreed point of view is you should question if you even want kids. This should be your last resort, not your first option.
100%.
And I keep thinking about it. I think a lot of them just are abusing that point of view.
Absolutely. I mean, I was reading today actually that there are some companies that offer egg freezing as a part of a package.
It looks progressive.
Yes,
but
but
I think that's part of the problem.
Exactly.
What you should be doing is allowing them to have kids early so they don't have to put the career on hold.
Exactly.
The thing is, with a woman, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
You'll never have a man being asked, oh, so how do you balance life and kids?
Yeah.
I mean, work and kids.
Or like, hey, do you want to freeze your sperm so that you can put
Which is a thing now.
Is it?
Yeah,
oh, okay,
finally.
Great.
Finally, but again, even people don't know about it. Like you didn't know, but people just don't talk about it because another thing is, where's the man in this equation?
Exactly. And I feel like with that, everything ends up falling on the woman.
Yeah, financially, emotionally, hormonally, physically.
I mean, it's obviously you're you're half of that factor, but unfortunately for us, it's, we're the ones that have to undergo the injections. It's never just one cycle, especially if you're egg freezing. It's multiple cycles.
I didn't know that.
It's
Okay.
2 to 5.
So you're saying up to $20,000, 2 to 5 of that. That's a lot of money.
2 to 5 cycles. And
if you
understand how it works, it's basically you're timing it with your period and you're injecting yourself once a day. I think depending on what you're trying to retrieve, you're injecting yourself daily. And that's another thing. Like, are you okay with injecting yourself? Do you have a friend, a support system? Yeah.
When I saw that, first time I saw, sorry to cut you off.
No.
First time I saw it, it was glamorized.
Yeah.
But then I think a celebrity and someone I know were both talking about how hard it is. And she documented the injection. I was like, I didn't know that.
It's actually horrible.
Yeah, it changed
the
narrative for me.
Injecting right into your belly fat and you think it might not hurt. I mean, for some people, I don't know, some people have different pain tolerance, but it hurts. It's, psychologically you're stabbing yourself. I mean, they do come pre-measured. It's not a fun experience. And then the side effects of that is, you're bloated, like painfully bloated.
Yeah.
You are, moody. You are just, hormonal. You're hot. You're sweating. It's not fun, And then on top of that, you're messing with your hormones.
No.
And again, back to my point is when you're doing this whole process, it's timed with your cycle, and so you have to do this 2 to 5 times. This is 2 to 5 periods, and that's months. Yeah. It's like 2 to 5 months
if you're regular.
And that's a whole other aspect of it, right? So you're trying to get all those eggs, and it's a lot emotionally, physically, financially. And another part of it is it's frustrating because you go to all these clinics and they're all priced differently.
Yeah.
Why is there no baseline?
Yeah.
And it's again comes back to why is, female reproductive health just all over the place.
And insurance doesn't cover it.
Insurance does not cover it.
And company has to be so progressive to cover it,
yes.
which they don't. And most likely, again, men don't take. This is another added cost in our life that men don't take up.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ahmed about it just today, and he ended to add to this. He's like, and then you might get pregnant. So you have to do this for a few months.
Yeah.
And then you might get pregnant. He's like, you might.
There's no guarantee.
That's the thing. There's no guarantee, and no one tells you about that. And it's just so hard. And the men just don't even have to factor in. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to wonder, am I fertile enough?
But that's the frustrating thing is like, on the one hand, like if you're egg freezing, I don't know if you knew this, you have a 60% chance of successful egg defrosting, which means
so
after the retrieval, if you do want to use those eggs, you have a 60% chance that they are viable.
I had no idea.
Which is why you have to get that big quantity.
Oh yeah, so you already have 50.
Yeah, okay. So again, there's so many variables to factor in when you're taking this decision because it's not guaranteed. It's your health, your weight, are you a smoker, what's your diet like? All of these things factor in for the woman. But no one talks about the man.
No.
And it's literally infertility does not discriminate. Yeah. It is man and woman. And the men also face a large part of infertility problems.
So there was an article about how male infertility globally is going down.
Yeah.
And that's because of stress and the lifestyle, which is drinking, smoking.
Smoking is a big part
but also
of it.
the hormone disruptors, the toxins that no one talks about, which I've been actively trying to remove, but you know, it's really, really hard. You don't even know what's in it.
It's very difficult today.
It is
to filter out those things that affect your health.
It's everything you're exposed to.
Yeah.
And so there was a reel about a guy interviewing in the UK on the street. You know.
Oh, is it the nurse? The nurse guy that goes around asking like medical questions?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
So the guy was asking, how much do you think a man has an impact on infertility?
Yes, this is him. Okay. Yeah, this is
so
him.
all of the questions were 10, 5, 20%. It's 50-50.
It's 50-50.
And no one talks about it. No one says it. And it's always in our culture, specifically, the woman has failed.
Exactly.
You know, let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So it's the woman that has a problem with it. I know a friend of mine that's trying to conceive. She's Indo, trying to conceive to save her marriage. Her in-laws are blaming her, simply blaming her.
Yeah.
You know, not only she has to deal with endo, which is another painful experience.
She
has to deal with culture, and there's stigma around it. You know, we even have it. But I don't know how and when we're gonna start including men, and they should be in this equation.
100%.
And also to talk about financially. So I got put in supplements. Supplements are expensive.
Very.
And insurance doesn't cover them.
No.
I don't know why. And additionally, I have to buy this supplement, 400 dirhams.
Oh my
twice,
gosh.
every 2 weeks. Yeah, twice a month. Okay. Is Ahmed paying for it? Wait, I'm not saying Ahmed, he has to pay for it, but you know what I mean? It's not his medication. It's not his cost. I have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing is like, you know, you and I were married. We have that significant other. I'm sure they're more than happy to contribute to it because it is a partnership.
Yeah.
But for the women that are just egg freezing, they are single, they don't know what it's lonely. And you're putting in all this money. And like, that's not even including the storage fees that you pay monthly. Like, don't get me started on that.
And here you have it up to 5 years only.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
And then you have to, if you're on a renew, I think it's a process.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that actually. That's good to know. So, because I'm on my 3rd year now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think it's a lot, I think, for someone who's single and is going through it. And which is why, you know, this sparked our conversation, which is really think about why you're doing it. And, you know, I understand the power of like seeing some influencer going on this journey and posting about it. But like, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they are not posting
the ugly part.
The ugly part.
Yeah,
and it's a lot. Yeah. And, you know, yes, my experience was very specific, but I don't want to say that it stops with me. It doesn't. I mean, I'm sure your experience also wasn't great. And the knowledge surrounding it isn't very accessible.
No.
And, you know, you have to go in knowing what questions to ask in advance.
Because the doctors either are withholding information or they don't know, which is worse.
Yeah. I mean, an example for us is... There's 2 examples. When we, after we had frozen our embryos, I think it was like a year later, we were just doing, you know, checkups to see like what our health was like. Because we had talked about kids. And I remember my husband going to get tested, and there was a bit of a concern with, obviously, you know, sperm motility. Sorry. But it's so common. And unfortunately, like, men don't talk about that. It's not something that's discussed. And it's almost like there's this thing where it's like, oh, like he's less of a man because,
can you imagine men sitting together? They're like, so what's your sperm count?
Yeah, but like, but we do, you know, we have these conversations and it's insane that like those conversations don't happen.
Yeah.
And so we got this test result, and I remember being like confused by it because I was like, okay, we've already frozen our embryos. Does that mean that, you know, the quality is not great? And I remember having a massive argument with my doctor at the time. Yeah. And, you know, he's like, no, you have to understand because we were rushing. And I was like, yeah, but this is information that I should know.
And then it's due diligence.
You have to explain this to your patient because,
do you think they were withholding that because you didn't want you to not do it for financial
I don't know.
gain?
I can't speak to what their
do you know what I mean? Like,
I do. No. It is worrying. It's extremely worrying because
it's a financial thing now.
It's a financial thing. We've put all this money into it. I've undergone the operation, which in and of itself has its own complications. And you're telling me now, a year and a bit after that, you know, there was some, like a little bit of a red flag there that wasn't on my end. And like, I can tell you very honestly, I felt very responsible.
Did you internalize?
Of course. I felt like I was, you know,
you brought this.
I brought this on us, you know, like we, you know, I'm taking something away from him.
Yeah.
And, you know, is it something that's like obviously going to affect us later on in life? And I felt very responsible. Like, I've taken away the chance of having kids.
Yeah.
Not like remove the cancer out of it. Like, you know, I put it, a lot of it on myself, a lot of the blame on myself. Yeah. And then to be told later on, like, hey, by the way, it's not just you. Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh.
It's liberating.
It is. Yeah. It is. And it
to share that responsibility and to share
100%. Yeah. And it also makes you realize, like, hey, simple things like lifestyle changes can improve.
That's the thing. Yeah, and really simple. Like, my numbers changed within less than a year of changing my diet.
There you go.
And it's improved a lot.
100%.
But that's it. I don't like avoidable mistakes.
Yes,
it's very frustrating,
and it makes me very angry. And that leads me to the second situation, which was actually 3 days ago.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, so we've had to move our embryos from our original clinic for whatever reasons, and when they arrived at the new clinic, the lady there emails me and tells me, by the way, I noticed that your embryos were frozen on day 2. I think you should come in to speak to our doctor just to get a better understanding of your, you know, probabilities and if you want to still go through with transferring them and keeping these embryos. And so I'm like, what does that mean? And I obviously go online and like keyboard warrior, like Google.
Google is not the best friend, but it gives you answers.
I had no idea that actually the day that your embryos are frozen makes a massive difference. So
what do you mean the day? Is it like after they remove them?
So they remove the egg and then obviously fertilize it. And then they stay in this little petri dish. So it's between 2 to 6 days. And the best outcome is from day 5 to 6. And the least is day 2 to 3.
I'm so sorry.
So already I am...
You're already at... You know, you keep decreasing the probabilities.
Exactly. And
with avoidable things. But yeah.
So not only have I gone through this emotionally trying situation, physically it was not fun. It feels horrible.
So you don't recommend it?
I mean, personally, no. Unless you really, really have to. And if you do, ask the right questions. Yeah. You know, and then finding out that it's not just me, it's also my partner. And then realizing that there's a process that happens afterwards where the person in the lab is responsible for didn't, for whatever reason, didn't inform us of this, didn't let us know that, hey, by the way, day 2 is when we froze them. I don't know what your reasons were. I'm beyond asking now because it's too late.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore.
But why was it not frozen day 5, day 6?
Yeah.
You know? So these are all things that are like 1 to 3 years later that I'm finding out.
Yeah, and bush. What did they say, if you don't mind me asking?
So, I mean, nothing.
No, did you go talk to them?
I haven't. I still need to schedule that appointment. Obviously, it's a specialist, so you know how it is. It takes time here. Well, how are you free in like January 2024?
Yeah, I'll just wait and think about the worst outcome possible while you are in Maldives.
Basically. So it's, I mean, there's a lot of things that we found out after the fact, which is one of my concerns when I see people glorifying this whole process and, you know, oh, I just went to freeze my eggs because, you know, I saw Jennifer Aniston do it. And, you know, I saw this influencer online and, you know, they were probably being, not gonna lie, paid to endorse XYZ clinic. Yeah. So just do your due diligence and research it and understand what you're actually getting yourself into. Yeah. And I mean, and understand that it's not guaranteed
It's really not guaranteed.
It's
It's
not
not your way
guaranteed.
out.
at all.
I think you're back to, if it's meant to happen, it will happen in its due course. You can take all of the measures, put yourself through it, but it'll happen if it needs when it needs to
Exactly.
happen.
There's zero guarantee. There are too many variables to factor in the whole process. But yeah.
Well, I think you wrapped up very well. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything you would like to add if someone is considering to do something like that?
I mean, I think we've said it, ask the right questions. I think, if you are considering it, ask your clinic, what their success rates are.
It's a good question.
Because, if you're going to a clinic, you need to know that they are one of the best, that they do have good success rates. We didn't do that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, obviously
There was no
time
time.
crunch and whatnot, but, asking those questions, asking, what the cost is. If you are egg freezing and not embryo freezing, what's the cost afterwards? Because you still have to fertilize that egg. You still have to get it back in, inside you. You still have to deliver that baby. And I think ask yourself if you really, really, really do want to have kids.
Yeah.
Is that something that you want that badly to undergo all of these?
Yeah, I agree. Because I don't think it's worth it. I don't think if it might be worth it for people, but I know for me, if I have to go through that, it's a no.
Yeah.
Then it's not meant to happen.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I'm still on the fence.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, we've been told you can try naturally and that's fine. But I mean, I am not the optimist in that situation because of my history. And, the thought of having to inject myself again and undergo that again, it's too much to, I think, mentally bear. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you hear good news from the clinic. I really do.
Me too.
I really do. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. Tell us where you are in your journey. If you have a fertility or infertility questions, please. I mean, we're not doctors, but we can help direct you with what to look at. We have good
we
wealth of
have
experience.
a collective experience.
Yes.
I think we know what questions to ask.
Yeah, and what to look out for. And we learned a lot of things today as well, apparently. So, comment, join us in this conversation, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.